Welcome everybody to another episode of Cool Down. These episodes are birthed out of basically at the track. When the cars are cooling down, you've had a good day, you get together and chat.
In 2018, I was hired to basically launch Tire Streets. And
so when you guys hear those stories where I was like, I asked for free tires and they said no, and they said no, she was the one hanging the phone up on me.
It wasn't just one phone call, it was 4 emails and several Instagram messages to different profiles where people, because
I'm a stalker?
a little bit, not me personally.
I'd love to kind of start at the beginning and just try to walk them through how did we build, Nate, a GR86 solely with Accelera and Tire Streets, from the factory's perspective to the marketing to the car being in the shop right now. So Tito, her mic's good, right?
Yeah, we're both good.
Okay. Sweet.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye, Tito.
This is how loose these things are. We just turn the thing on and send it, you know?
I mean, it's the only way to do it. It needs to feel like an actual conversation. If you're like, all right, let's start talking, it'd be really, really freaking weird.
Yeah, like if we had the whole countdown, like 10, 9.
First of all, I would have a panic attack.
Quiet on the set, and we're live, right?
I'd feel like high school when I used to do like newscasts at the beginning of school, like sitting there in my blazer, like.
Today it's gonna rain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The football team won yesterday by 14 points. No, thank you.
That's awesome. All right, well, we're rolling. So let's jump off on this thing. Welcome to Texas. For those watching, here's another episode of Cool Down. I'd like to give a quick background on how these things started, just so the new viewers can know. Yep. Long story short, at the racetrack, after a fun day of drifting, when your car's cooling down, usually everybody's kicking it and talking shit in the pit. And in this case, we're doing the same at 144. We have a special guest from North Carolina, Kaylee Zozos. And Kaylee means a lot to me. But first, I would love to just hear what she thinks of herself. Kaylee, give us an intro.
Oh, no, these things are the worst. This is like 3 truths and a lie. No, yeah, I'm Kaylee. I don't even know how to say this, but I used to work for Tire Streets in Accelera. That's how Nate and I met. And yeah, I've been working in marketing and advertising and e-commerce for almost 10 years. So.
Yeah, and so for me, Kaylee really was like a mentor in my momentum, right? So I met Kaylee in 2018, and let's say, you know, as a driver, I was undervaluing myself, and 100%. Just a lot of things happened when I met Kaylee, and so I'm super excited to have her on and basically pick her brain for you guys, right? So I want to talk a lot about sponsorships and a lot about the back end of motorsports and what you've seen and what you've heard and like how you developed Tire Streets and Accelera. So again, quick background. Met Kaylee in 2018, called her specifically, got a hold of her, and I asked for free tires. So when you guys hear those stories where I was like, I asked for free tires, and they said no, and they said no, she was the one hanging the phone up on me.
It wasn't just one phone call, it was 4 emails and several Instagram messages to different profiles where people, because
I'm a stalker?
a little bit, not me personally, but I am the face behind the brand, right? So what would happen is, or like Accelera would get one like from the factory and they would just forward it to me and I'd be like, this same dude, like, I don't know who you are, nor do I care. I'm just trying to get my shit straight. Like, we haven't even fully launched the brand yet. And this guy is asking me for free tires. Get the hell out of here.
And that's how early I was on it, right? So like, I remember being at Rhythm Print Supply in Wiley, Texas. I had started the company in like early 2018. I mean, I claimed 2017 is when I did the paperwork. Yep. But 2018, I really got the storefront. And by mid to end 2018, it was time to get back in the drift car. And I was on Instagram randomly waiting for a screen to dry. And I seen Tire Streets, we're drift tires or something, you know? And I was like, in all my years, I have never heard of Accelera or Tire Streets, and they claim to be drift tires? I'm calling them.
Yeah, I mean, in 2018, I was hired to basically launch Tire Streets. And yeah, Accelera was barely known in the US. I think the 651 Sport may have been here for like 3 or 4 years, and they had like from Accelera USA, they had like one guy in California that wasn't really doing much to like promote the brand, and they were like, oh, we'll just like work with the company that I worked for was like, oh, we'll create a B2C store and we'll sell this specific tire to like help one of our partners, etc. And so, March 2018, I think, is when we launched the brand. And I think it was like June or July is when I started getting Instagram messages, because that's when you were like, hey guys, what tires should I run? And again, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And why has he not gone away yet? Like,
yeah, for sure. Well, then tell me about that. So launching the brand, I guess, we'd have to give some respect to Bagsy, because when I came on, you had already signed on.
No, not yet. Not yet. No, he wasn't until 2019. So halfway through or at the end of 2018 is when we started working that deal with him. But like, you were truly like one of the first. It wasn't Bagsy, it was Caleb Quambach. That was the first influencer we worked with, because we were looking at YouTube guys, because that was where drifting was at the time. And like, I was new to the sport. Like, I have a background in action sports, and motorsports was new to me, but they're all the same people, just a different circle, right?
Yeah.
So when we started working with Caleb for the launch, and then we were like kind of messing around with working with other people to get us more in the community, and that's kind of like where you came in. But we started talking, I guess, in 2018, and then really moved into things with 2019, and Bagsy came in at the end of the year in 2019, I believe.
Right.
Or middle of the year, I guess.
Yeah, and I remember, driving with Bagsy in Atlanta for Grid Life for 2019. So that was some of my first kind of momentum with Accelera and Tire Streets. But let's go back to just like in the very, very beginning. So like, I'm direct messaging, I'm emailing. Like, give me some of your honest feedback as far as like, what is that like when kids are hitting us up or hitting you up? Like, what is it like when someone is trying to cold call or get in the door? Like, what was your thoughts on that? And what kind of was the thing that made the thing go, right? Like,
yeah.
I know you guys get a lot of people that hit you up.
Yep.
Tire Streets, Accelera, there's a lot of opportunity at the door.
Yep.
But I guess I'm trying to kind of ask, what made our relationship like happen?
I always say that it's going to be different for every single brand, because the main thing is you're doing business with people, right? So for me at that time, I knew that we were just started, had zero budget, and I saw your follower count and I was like, oh, that's sick, because that's the only thing I was going off of. And I saw like some of your Instagram were like creative and kind of like on the task of where I wanted to take the brand. So what really happens is I got on the phone with you. That's basically what sealed the deal, because all of your emails were like, yo, what's up? I'm Nate Hamilton. I'm a former FD driver. I do all these things and have 40,000 followers on Instagram. Give me free tires. And I was just like, that is not a reason for me to give you anything. Like, you didn't tell me at all how you were going to help me. You didn't tell me how you fit into the brand that apparently you love so much. And then we got on the phone and I was just like, listen, man, I cannot give you free tires. That's impossible. I will be 100% honest with you. We don't have a budget for that. But what I do have a budget for is to grow, because I know that we'll be here for a hot minute, and I would love to see you prove yourself, and then we can really start talking about how we can work together better.
See what I'm saying? So this is exactly what was happening on the back end of our conversations. And what I mean by that is, like, when you said all of that right there, I was remembering this stuff. You know, it was like, yeah. I remember you explaining to me, and this is why I'm trying to bring this up to the audience, because it's like, hey, I took a phone call yesterday, yep. Right? So sorry guys, I'm on the coffee right now. You know what I mean?
I'm also on the coffee.
But let me slow down. So it's like, yesterday at 144, there's a cold call. Bailey hands me the phone. I answer the phone, and a kid is like, hey, I want some sponsorship advice. I want to drive professional Formula Drift. Like, that's what I want to do. What do I say? How do I get there?
Yep.
And similar to what Kaylee's explaining is, like, I was using that series as a talking point.
Yep.
But I didn't even understand that, let's say, Tire Streets or Accelera had no vision to be in Formula Drift.
Yep.
And so just using that coin sometimes doesn't work. And so, yeah, like when you're talking, Kaylee, I'm remembering all the cool shit you taught me. So
yeah, and like even in that first conversation, I specifically remember being like, I mean, maybe we'll be an FD one day, like Accelera will be an FD one day, and we'll be there as well. But I can't see the future 5 years down the line. I literally launched this brand like 4 months ago, so like I don't know, I cannot tell you what that's going to be. But I remember me being honest with you and you being like, okay, listen, that's fine. Here is who I am as a person. And I was like, cool, you are who Tire Streets is as a person and who I want Tire Streets to be. So like, of course I want to align myself with you. And on top of that, like in today's day and age, so many people would pitch like, oh, I have an Instagram following. But then I look at like content and I'm like, okay, you're leveraging an Instagram that you aren't putting anything out differently than anybody else. So you're only giving me one side of who you are. And you leverage like, well, I'm a creative and like, you can look at some of my Instagram stuff, but here's some other stuff. You like threw some other like different, I don't know, it was like tire photos that you were sending me, but that was what we were posting a lot of because no one knew of what the product was. And it was just different from what everybody else was doing. And I was like, cool, I can use that. Like, this is exactly where I want Tire Streets to be. So on top of that, you asked me a ton of questions, which I loved because I was like, you care.
Yeah.
Like, why would I want to work with someone that doesn't even care about me? And in a year from now, not me personally, but the brand, in a year from now, you bounce. Like, that's not helpful for someone that's new.
Yeah, and I remember too, like at the print shop, like being a little bit outside of drifting. And then when I went to get back into drifting, I thought about, you know, all the things that I would have done when I was drifting.
Yep.
So it was like I had this kind of momentum of like, I'm coming back and here's how I'm going to bring value. And I really wanted to bring something to the sport versus just trying to take from the sport. And I feel like for me personally, being at the very beginning of that moment with Tire Streets and Accelera, I felt like I had some leverage because it was such an early brand. Like I knew I could build something and kind of create a wave for us. And I felt like that was like just really intriguing for me, you know, and I, obviously like signing on with other companies that are well established. Like I've driven on Falcon, I've driven on Hankook, I've driven on some of the top brands, Achilles. But it's like, it was just exciting. It was so unknown and it was so exciting. And you told me no so many times, and we started to figure it out. Even
going into 2019, like I think we worked with you for part of a year where you literally bought tires the entire time because I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like you hit me up in like April or maybe it was June, whatever. It was like right after we launched. I was like, I can't give you anything. And then going into the next year, you're like, how about now? And I'm like, I literally nothing has changed within the 6 months. Like we're in the same place we were before. It really hasn't even been a full year. And then that year, I think we started working closer together in the sense that you would just ask me what's up and like what we were doing and what we needed. And I'd be like, we're struggling with X, Y, and Z. Can you help me or give me insight or whatever? And all of that just brought so much value that it was really easy for me then to pitch to someone like, hey, within our budget, we need to include X amount so that we can help this guy out because he has done X for us and it's time for us to kind of pay him back in a way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I remember I had like contacts and I have, you know, just, I feel like I love drifting and drifting loves me and that all connects. And so, yeah, I felt really excited about the unknown.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Yeah, so flashing forward now, so like then we get to connect, then I start driving on your tires. Then I started basically reporting back to you on things of how it's going, how many I'm using, started delivering photos and some media. But I think to your point, what we were doing well at together was how can 144 help you guys? And that's something I preach to the audience right now is just like most of the time, if you're going to SEMA or you're going to pitch something, it's like, hey, what up? Do we align? Can we go long term? And how do I help you? And if you don't know what you need, how does a driver fulfill their obligations to a brand that doesn't know what they even need?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times too, like across the board, a brand may need like something so minute as like, we want to be in the marketplace. So you have to be at 15 events and you have to run a logo. Like, that stuff's great, but most of the time that only gets you so far. That'll get you a foot in the door, but if you're not then thinking, okay, then what? Okay, then what? Okay, then what? And then answering their why they should be working with you, it's just going to fizzle out. Like you get the quick moment and then there's nothing after that. And you're like, oh, I don't understand. I did all the things you said, but there's always going to be a step that you have to take.
Well, so then what would you say to some drivers listening to this right now? Like, obviously, Kaylee's out of Tire Streets and Accelera, so she's not currently with them anymore. But if you still were, and you were the rep that was looking to onboard or sign a new athlete, like, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you see happening in today's industry? Like, you know, I know you put me on, you've put like Grant Anderson on, you've put others on. Like, But like, what makes that actually go? Like, what's your do's and don'ts when you're reaching out to partners?
I guess the main one is like, ask them how you can help them, right? And if they can't answer that question, you answer it for them. And if even at that point, they don't, like, this is to help, like, this is for the driver side of things. This is how I've always thought, because I always felt bad when I never really knew how to tell someone how they could get better, but they needed more and more and more and more from us, but we couldn't deliver. I would be like, go somewhere else. Like, that's so hard to say, but it's true, which is just like, if you are not getting what you need and you have done all the steps of asking them what they need and they are not being able to tell you what that is, and there is no path forward, don't hold yourself back. The industry is big enough.
You used to tell me that
I tell
a
you
lot.
that all the time. Because yes, there is always time to like play the game, right? You have to feel it within yourself, right? But it comes down to like, at some point, something has to give somewhere. But also, like, have understanding that brands may seem bigger than they actually are. So you may be like, oh, I know I can get 300 tires from this company because they're huge. When in reality, most of the time, it's just one dude or one person who's doing the job of several people within that department. And they have 7 of you that they're talking to consistently. And all 7 to 17 of those drivers all need the same thing. So it's like, okay, have a little understanding and be like, okay, maybe at that point too, you got to take a step back. I don't know. It's really hard because it just genuinely is luck of the draw almost sometimes.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to kind of explain, that magic. Like,
Yeah.
I want the younger kids and the current dudes driving, and I want the industry, like, I do my best to try to explain what worked for me, but it's so cool to hear your perspective because you've seen so many different attempts.
Yeah.
And
Like, for instance, I see a lot of the similar, I used to see a lot of the similar things where like someone would cold email us to our like inbox email, and then it would be a really well-written email, but you could tell that it was just kind of like copy and pasted to several people, which I get, totally fine. And it would be a deck. And I would look at all of those. But then like the deck didn't stand out to me, so I bounced. It's literally a job, like you're applying for a job when you ask for a sponsorship. It's the same thing. You could send out 500 resumes and get 3 callbacks and then never get a job. Like, it's exactly the same thing. And something I always wish people would do is they would treat it that way. Because sometimes you'd get a really well put together resume and you're like, okay, this is great. And then you'd call them and it would work out, but they would ask for way too much. You'd be like, I cannot offer you that. And then they would either get mad or not leave you alone. And it's like, okay, I'm still only one person here. Like, shoot, like I'm telling you all the things. There is nothing else to do. Where like if it was a job, you would just walk away from that and then go find someone else.
I see.
Everyone always like balances everything on like this one opportunity. And it's never just one, it's just several snowball effects.
Dang.
And perfect timing also.
Yeah. Timing, consistency, and then the actions matching for the value of the goal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I remember talking to Duarte from Drift HQ when we first started. And his value he brought me was that they knew everyone in South Florida, or in Florida in general, right? And I was like, sick. Like, if you want to sell tires eventually, I'll figure out how to make that happen so I can like give you product at a discount or like figure out something, because I want to work with you because you know a lot of people and I know I'll get some media from you guys as well. But like, if he would have talked to me maybe 2.5 years later, I would be like, yeah, no, I already have so many people in Florida. This is not going to work out. So like, it just genuinely is
Right.
being able to get in front of the right person, and then a numbers game. Numbers game and luck. Like, that's literally it.
That is so cool.
Come correct. Always come correct. Have your shit in order. Know what you need to ask for. Know when to like press on the gas. Maybe try pressing on the gas on some people and being like, okay, well that didn't work. Now we go do it to someone else. It's literally a job interview.
Yeah.
Application.
So we're gonna end up getting to like how Kaylee and I sealed the deal on the new GR86. So basically, Kaylee and I worked the whole deal and got everything green lighted. And Kaylee got all the money in the bank, and then we built the car. So we're gonna get to that. But before we get to that,
Yeah.
what would you say were some of your like, you know when you have like proud moments when you were able to be with Tire Streets and Accelera from the beginning, and then let's say whoever, Bagsy came in and did a great job, Nate came in and did a great job, you've seen growth in the company, but like from your perspective, what were some of the cool accomplishments that you were able to knock out with your time when you were there? Like what was exciting for you to go home and be like, fuck yeah, I did that?
Probably when we started to see more sales than, like, there was a while there that we were like only selling in Florida, because that's where our warehouse was when we first launched. And we'd offer like pickup to people at the warehouse. And so that community also is like super small, or not small, it's large, but it's tight knit. So everyone knows each other. And so that word spread super fast. But when we started selling drift tires to like random people in Minnesota, or like 651 Sports in different parts of Idaho and stuff like that don't necessarily have as big of a drift community, but like we have somehow got our fingers into that area. I was like, okay, what we're doing is working, and that's sick.
That's cool. So so being able to see other regions start to hear about you and purchase, and then you're shipping out and you're like,
I'm like, how the hell did you even find, like, I know we run ads, but like that, it's not that targeted, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so what we're doing is making sense. That's super cool.
Right. What do you think, if you could give some public information, like what is the growth scale you've seen? Did you guys double? Did you guys do, like, how much has it grown?
I think we doubled every year for like the 5 years I was there. That's probably all I'm allowed to say, but I don't really work there anymore, so I don't really know. But
like some CIA, like.
I actually don't ever know how that stuff works. But it was something like we would almost double or triple our growth year over year, and it was just mostly selling within the drift community. So like the 651 Sport, everyone knows will work on the street, but like everyone wants to run whatever Michelin or Pirelli or like Toyo or Falcon, right? So we're up against a lot of really big, brands in that space. Where drifting, we just could capture that audience better, and with a product that works pretty well.
Yeah, like I felt like that too, and that was what was cool, was like Accelera Tire Streets was drifting.
Yep.
Like when I found it, it was drifting, and then the love and the growth of drifting kept going and going and going, and so.
I will say that was like our approach, right? Well, yeah, it was our approach, because I come from, like I said, a background of action sports, and you see all the niche pockets of how that stuff works. And if you can capture the community, then you have a brand, and you don't have a brand without the community. So that was I saw that drifting was lacking consistency of like a tire product, a consistency of a brand. And I didn't come from a background of motorsports either, so like I was learning all of this within like research within the first month of me working there. So
I'm following. So before we go to the GR86, I just have one more question. It's kind of repetitive here, so follow me. But what I'm trying to kind of explain is, I know there was a few people that I was mentoring. We'll leave like the details out of it because it's not the important part.
Yeah.
But it was like for those who are trying to reach out to a company.
Yeah.
And maybe they're trying and they've done a year to 2 years, and whatever the lust over the brand's image, it's like with me, for example, with like VP Racing Fuels, that's just a legendary, iconic brand that as a little kid I seen.
Yeah.
And so like for me, I would always try to aim for that over X, Y, and Z. But like, I know people are listening and they're like, dude, I'm doing the proposal.
Yep.
I try to answer the phone.
Yep.
And I go to SEMA every year, but I'm still struggling to figure this out. Like, what would you say to that dude in the car? Like, what are your like A, B, C, D, E, F, G steps that you absolutely have to try to put together? Like, because you really mentored me a lot in the idea of like, Nate, you're undervaluing yourself. You don't have this together. How do you not know your budget? How do you not know, right? Like, you were really able to kick my ass and like help me understand what made sense when pitching to a brand. And so if you could give us a skinny version of that for the dude that's still out there hustling, trying to make it happen.
So first thing is research of the brand you're going to talk to, right? Before step 0 is have your shit straight, right? Like, know what you need for the year, know what you can operate on without having sponsorship money, because that's huge. Like, yes, sponsors go a long way, but if you know that you can still go to 12 events without having 12 sponsors or one sponsor that gives you all the money, that's huge, because like that's how you do the thing you love. Like, the main thing is don't try to get everything you do funded from the very beginning, because 90% of the time it's not going to happen.
I love that. First step, try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
How much can you be out there on your own, under your own like efforts, and then all of the sponsorship stuff starts to become bonuses, and it starts to become expansion of your own program.
Yep.
So step one, try to do it yourself. I love that. And a lot of guys in the industry, I can name a few that come to my head, like Forsberg and Odie and Rad Dan, and I mean, a lot of that Formula Drift community pairs their motorsports program with their own business. And this is where I started printing, because I was like, well, before drifting, I was printing, and everyone can bet on a t-shirt, and I can make cool ass shirts for the industry. So maybe I'll be the t-shirt dude. And then that actually worked, right? But it's like, you gotta, like, I kind of built the business to help me go racing, and then all of the partners knew I was gonna be out there. So step one, try to go out on alone.
Yeah, and also to that point, like, I feel like a lot of people get so stuck in the passion and like, I need to do this right now before I die. I mean, we don't live in the 1800s anymore. People are living until 80 or 90 years old, right? So like, it can wait. If that means it takes you another year to get a budget straight or an understanding of how you're going to do it on your own. And then, once you have your shit straight, you understand what it costs you to do it. You understand like your worth, or not your worth, excuse me, your value you can bring to others. Because I have read a billion proposals where it's like, I have an Instagram, it has 3,000 followers. I go to these 5 events, they're all local. Think to yourself, what is the value to a brand that you're pitching to? And this is where the first step comes in, which is do your research. So if you're coming to talk to me at Tire Streets and Accelera, and you have either never run the tire, you don't understand about the tire, you haven't even researched the brand, so you can't, as I'm talking about who we are, you're not giving me any feedback, you're just like, okay, what are you gonna give me? Like that's not helpful at all. And once you do your research, you can then understand what value you can offer someone like that. Because very easily, the research that you do on the brand is like looking at their website or on their socials, and you get an understanding of who they are, and then you have to figure out how you fit into that. And you have to tell them how you fit into them, because 98% of the time, the brand doesn't know who you are, so they're not going to understand how you're going to fit into their brand.
And I had a really good, I'll tell the story as fast as possible. So with me and VP Racing Fuel, we were at SEMA, and the day before my meeting with VP, I got an email, I should say a day, the night before, right? We're out walking the casino, and I get an email, and it's like, hey, Nate, sorry we're canceling your meeting. Love you, see you later. You know, and I was like, wait, why are you canceling my meeting tomorrow with you guys? And I ended up replying, please don't cancel my meeting, cut it in half, but I need to see you. Then I go to the meeting, and it's like, shout out to my boy Vaughn, and it's like, hey man, Vaughn's drifting, and we got Vaughn, so we're good. And I, to your point of studying the brand, I was saying, hey guys, I'm in the dirt, right? I'm at Clutch Kickers, I'm grassroots, I'm at East 10, right? Like I'm in places that Vaughn isn't, so you're gonna want the kid in the dirt, and then you want the gold podium trophy dude as well, right? So it's like, then Vaughn walks up at that moment, no lie, and he was like, yo, Nate, and he like pushes me, and he's like, you good, family good? Like we checked in on each other. And then that was like the seal of approval. It was as if Vaughn and I were family, and they seen it all happen, and I was the kid in the dirt, coming back out of a print shop into drifting. And so I knew how I could speak for VP, studying them and understanding that they were not having the kid in the dirt. So I opted to be the kid in the dirt. So to your point, so step 2, study, understand maybe how you can then bring value to them. That they may not even see themselves.
And I guess 2A is like...
I love it.
Be able to appropriately pitch yourself to somebody else. Like you're literally elevator pitching a person who is most likely overworked and has talked to 700 of you that day or that week or within the month, right? They've heard all the same things. And so like that's what you do really well, and what I always like the reason why we started working together in the first place is because you asked me questions about the brand. You were curious and excited, and whether you actually were in the moment or not, I felt like you cared, right? It wasn't just a paycheck, and we created longevity out of it. And then step 3 is take no with pride, because quite often I'll tell someone, no, like straight up, that's not going to work. Here are the reasons why. And I am now on a 40-minute phone call where I am now arguing with this, not like actually arguing, but now we're going back and forth because now you're trying to pitch me harder. And all that does, to be honest, is low-key piss me off. And in a year when you may have your shit straight more or have additional value, I definitely don't want to work with you.
Yeah, you still remember that. And I'm kind of going through that, I guess you'd say, with Toyota, for example, right?
Yeah.
We were able to acquire a car through Toyota, which was beautiful. But of course, I'm like, all right, cool, and I'm next.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, hey, Nate, we planned 3 years out, keep us in the loop, but it's like, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
exactly.
And so instead of me being bummed, I was like, all right, cool. 3 years is going to flash by.
Yep.
I'm going to still drive till I'm 80.
Yep.
So, like, it'll come around when it comes around.
Yep.
And to your point, I wasn't able, or I'm not bugging and like, I'm giving patience and I'm allowing time, and I will be here and I will be better in 3 years.
100%.
And that dollar will be up in 3 years. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But it also comes back around to the first one, which is like, if you can do it on your own, if I do not give you money or a product, you should be able to do what you love. If you're relying solely on sponsors to do it, it becomes more of like, we need this to happen or my dream dies. And that turns in being desperate, and being desperate is not always something that someone wants to work with.
Absolutely. And if you were to give Kaylee and I a few beers, we would do this all night.
Literally.
But I really do hope that this is helping the listeners out there. And I really do hope, as we go into SEMA in the next few weeks, this brings some energy to the industry. And I want, like all the grassroots dudes out there pushing for new partners to gain something from this. But let's dive into the GR86. So for me, this was the biggest deal that I've ever closed in my career. It was something that Kaylee allowed me to stretch my own self and understand that I could accomplish this goal. And, for what we can share, I'd love to kind of start at the beginning and just try to walk them through, how did we build, Nate, a GR86 solely with Accelera and Tire Streets, from the factory's perspective to the marketing to the car being in the shop right now? Like, our first step was what?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I fully remember. I remember just being on the phone with you every single day for like 3 months, where we were talking about the 2022 season and what you needed, how we got there, and like what we could offer, right?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I remember, there's a time where the lust for the tire to go into a more professional setting was the goal for you guys. And, our momentum was building. And obviously, I wanted to be that guy. And then in this, the tool that I was using was just old.
Yeah,
right?
I remember you specifically saying the 240 will not get us anywhere if we go into FD. And so we will need a new car. And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. And of course, we would hate to go into FD without like essentially the face of the brand. So,
but what was the car originally going to be?
The new 400 Z. So, but that came with all of its own issues.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, this is a super insider. I've been in a Nissan my whole career, and I really, really look up to Chris Forsberg, and I'm sure he's going to call me one day and be like, stop talking about me.
Probably.
But as far as a young dude in XDC, I met Chris, and he really was a mentor to me as well, right? Come to Dad's backyard, teach me as much as he could. He really was someone that stuck out of my mind that helped me get to where I am today. So in this, I pitched to Kaylee, let's build a new Z. I think me being in 240s and then me being in the new Z would be epic.
It's such a good story, too.
It is, And then I called Chris. He connected me with his, what do you call, agent? His brand?
Manager?
His manager?
Yeah, I think it's manager.
Connected with the manager, and just things didn't align for my program and their program. And the car was so hard to get anyway. Chris really has a strong connection with Nissan, and he's able to do what he can do.
Yep.
But even that was like a very, very strict thing.
Yep.
So that door closed, and we had to look further out. and we fell in love with Toyota. But
Yeah.
the car originally was going to be a new Z.
I mean, we spent almost all of 2022 with the project like finalized, unable to get the actual car.
Kaylee had money in the bank, and I couldn't spend it.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, could not find the chassis. Could not. Like, we waited months
Yeah.
to get a chassis.
Correct.
We hit up Chris. We went to Brian at MA and tried to connect dots with them in Nissan. Like,
Yep.
we just did everything we could to keep Nate in a Nissan. And yeah, I remember, Toyota's in my backyard.
Yep.
Ran into Darren, who is an original, like, motorsports director over at Toyota, and he signed Osbo and Turek and others. And we had some sushi randomly like 2 years prior. And I was like, I'm going to call Darren. And boom, we got a GR86, obviously, 2023.
Yep.
So we finally located the car.
Yep.
And then, yeah, what's your brain thinking on that? So,
Well, I mean, I don't know, we're talking a lot about sponsorships and partnerships, right? And on the back end, right, to get that deal across, it wasn't like 2 conversations and I created a pretty deck and then it got done, right? I mean, it was almost an entire year of involving like my boss, my boss's boss, the entire factory. And not every company is going to be that way, but like it was extensive conversations. So like this goes back to like what we were saying before, which is just because you hear no doesn't mean it is a no. It just means it's not right now. And the amount of time I know that I had spent just talking about the project in order to get it across the finish line was extensive.
and then that's why she left. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
I'm so tired that I bounced because I couldn't do it.
No, but yeah, I mean, I absolutely remember that. And I remember, something's happening to me these days where I get far less nervous.
Yeah.
But I remember being on the phone with you and just being like, today's the day they're going to cancel the project,
Yeah,
right?
oh,
Like,
100%.
Today's the
I know,
day.
every time I called you and I was like, okay, this is, because what had happened is like, we created an outline, was like, it's going to cost this much. This is what that cost is going towards. This is what we're going to do. Here is the 3-year plan after that. And here are all the things. But to your point, like, Accelera didn't exactly know what they wanted in that moment. So we were telling them, like, this is what you need to do based on the timeline that you have set for yourself. And so I pitched it to my boss. She's like, this is great. I'm going to pitch it to my boss. And then she pitched it to her boss. And then that person was like, this is great. We have to talk to the factory who's in Indonesia, who like has their own questions. Then they all talk to each other. And then they'd be like, hey, Kaylee, we need more information. And then I'd find out 2 weeks after or like a month after my initial launch to that project, it was like, hey, we need more information. And then I'd call you and I'd say, hey, Nate, I need all of these things.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean? Why do they need that? And I'd be like, oh, well, because insurance, like they just need to understand how things work. We have to explain to them and then tell them why these things are what they were and how it actually all works together in the project. So every time I called you, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's canceled. I'm like, nope, I just need a little more information.
Yes, and we did that for like a year, guys.
Yeah.
Like we really dug in, and that project is huge. I mean, and for me, it's huge, and it's still yet to come into reality, meaning I haven't driven the car yet.
Yep.
And there's a lot of lust and dreaming going on over driving it in the 2024 season when it will be fully active.
Yep.
But it's to the point of patience, plant seeds, let them grow, believe in things, and just like all of that worked out for us. And I'm so proud of you mentoring me and getting all of that across the line and allowing this to be real.
Yep.
And the car's in the shop and it's
So
epic.
sick.
And
So
it's
sick.
just something I personally loved about that project, which was going to happen no matter the car,
Yeah.
was we were able to pitch something and then get it approved and then put the money in the right places, right? Like
Yep.
I loved buying Rad Dan's 342J,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
quick story for Rad Dan. This engine cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in this, being that you had allowed me the budget, we had the money.
Yeah.
So we connect with Dan. Hey, Dan, we'd love an engine. Hey, I got one. I'm not running FD this season, so it's literally ready to go.
Yep.
Beautiful. Dan hits me up and he's like, hey man, I don't really mind. I'll take 12 payments. I'll take 24 payments. Like, I'll send the engine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sounds good. Let's go with the 24 payments. And he's like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, wire all the money. Boom. And he wakes up and the entire payment is there for him. And he's like, nice, you know?
Yeah.
And then same with MA Motorsports. We did multiple things with them. Same with FDF, with the angle kit. Like, just, I wanted to give back to as many people in the industry as we could.
Yep.
Same with Walker Pro Motorsports. So Walker Wilkerson is, or Russell Walker, I'm so sorry. Russell Walker is a local Texas legend, you know what I mean? So he was able to fabricate the cage. And so I feel like the car has a lot of love from the industry built into it, which was the goal for me.
I mean, that was the goal for us as well, like Accelerator and Tire Streets going into it, because like being newer to the industry, I always felt like we lacked the connection, like because it was a tire company who's kind of corporate, that kind of has a tire that works in this industry. Like, I'm not a drifter myself, so I'm always like, okay, we need to do something that like actually connects and actually like helps, or like can put all the dots together. And I thought it was cool that you were like, yeah, we got to go work with all of my friends, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool for them too, because they help, you know, and this is kind of a little bit of the magic. It's like they're naturally invested to help me.
Correct.
You know, whether like I seen Dan made a post, when Nate goes 2J, he goes all in, right? It's just like they naturally want to help me and promote their products in the car, which is naturally the marketing that we need the car to do.
Correct.
So
exactly.
It was very, very special.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So Kaylee, let's talk a little bit about you now.
Oh no.
Like, where are you? Where'd you go? Why'd you leave? Like, do you miss it? What are, like, you know, like, where's Kaylee? And I'm sure you miss some of the athletes you managed and stuff. Like, why did you leave?
Well, I mean, you can't do something forever, right? Like, at the end of the day, it was a job, right? And I don't know, I get stir crazy. So like, drifting and Tire Streets and Accelera were awesome, and it was a great point in my career, but it was just kind of time for me to take a next step. And the last point that I made, that like, I am connected to all the people I worked with, because a lot of you in particular, a lot of people I've become pretty close friends with. And I remember on like one of my last when I put my 2 weeks again, I was like, oh, that's sad. I'm like leaving right before the season actually starts, so like I don't get to like go hang out with like Grant, or I had just started working with Evan Shanks at that point. We've had like extensive conversations over the past 4 months. I was like, I don't even get to meet him in person. That kind of sucks. Like, it was just kind of time. It was one of those things. The first part of your question was, where'd I go? I'm doing something similar, just for an online vape retailer. And it's a little more slow pace, which honestly, after 5 years of running around with a chicken with my head cut off, I kind of wanted something that I could just hang out for a second. That's basically it, I guess.
That's cool. And I know the traveling of drifting like ebbs and flows. Like, I remember the year I stayed home to just get the print house going, I was like, oh, every single weekend I can hang with my lady. I can count on the brewery or whatever, right? Like,
Exactly.
But at some point you miss that. So like, are you in that lull of like, shit, I want to get back out there?
I'm getting close to it. So I left in March. So all of like the time when I was like seeing all y'all at the events, and like I'm keeping up with people on YouTube and Instagram, I'm like, oh, that looks fun, but I don't miss working 14-hour days. Like, I miss the beer after, but working 14-hour days and then a 7-day work week as well, I was like, I can't do that anymore. And like, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, I need like one weekend a month where I'm doing something.
I can pick something up.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I'm trying to think, like, Kaylee's here in Texas, so she's visiting us. We're going to show her around town. We're going to have an open house, little party out back.
Yep.
What do you think about 144 right now? Like, what do you think about being here and seeing us as a team in action? Like, what are your thoughts?
Because I'm over direct, right? I'm like way too direct for most people. But
send it.
I remember when you first called me, And I think it was the second year that we worked together, so 2019. You sent me like a care package with all rhythm stuff, and I was like, oh, this guy gets it. He's got some branding, and like his stuff looks really cool and different, and I like this. And I'm like, man, I just wish he was a little more put together. Like, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. It's all disconnected. And I remember the first time in like 2021 or 2020, you're like, all right, what do I need? Like, I need your help. And I'm like talking to you on the phone. I'm like, yeah, you need to start like really promoting 144. Like, you're not doing a good job of, like, everything's disconnected. Like, you have a brand, but then what? Mm-hmm. And like, now I see the then what happening. And it's pretty cool to see that you guys went from just kind of being a number to being like way more than that. It's kind of awesome to see you grow. So
yeah, but it's also complicated for those
100%.
Like, for those who don't know, it's like, obviously I was driving Formula Drift and my dream came true, and I didn't get the results I wanted in like sponsorship and business, and like I wasn't able to maintain a Formula Drift program. So in this, I wanted to count on myself, and I wanted to go start screen printing t-shirts because I had been a pressman prior to drifting, and I knew that I could print for all my friends.
Yeah.
But what's happening in today's world is 144 is what some would say your brand's favorite brand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of complicated, right? Like
100%.
144 is Nate's original race number, yet we do collabs with Grant Anderson and, you know, others, Luke Fink. Like, we're doing stuff to where the collar is saying 144's Print House, and the front of the shirt is saying Grant Anderson.
Yep.
And like, what are your thoughts on that branding aspect, and like, how do we get like the audience to understand that 144? I want 144 to become more like a Volcom or like a, you know, skate team than just Nate's race number.
Yep.
And like, how do we transition that? Or do you think the world is seeing that, or do you think they still see 144 is Nate and Y is, you know, whatever, right? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
I feel like I watched the Krista episode, and she did a really good job of explaining like branding, right? And I think you guys are almost there, but still relying so heavily on you as an athlete, and that's fine. But that's only going to take you so far. I think I told you this earlier in the week, that like Nate Hamilton is Nate Hamilton. Like, that's all the further you're going to go, is all the further that the brand is only going to go as far as you go within the industry. But the brand could be bigger than Nate Hamilton quicker than just like being Nate Hamilton.
Well, because the brand has more options.
Correct. Correct.
Like we want to host drivers, right? So if you go to our website, you can click shop drivers, Grant Anderson, Luke Fink, Nate Hamilton, and I want to continue that catalog.
Yep.
So it's like we're a service providing for those who don't want their girlfriends or wives to have to ship everything off the kitchen floor, right? Yep. Like, we want to help you fulfill and print, and also be a hub and a home that's rad and cool, kind of like a you know, like a dirt bike shop.
Well, yeah, I mean,
like a shop.
You hit the nail on the head by saying Volcom. Like, all action sports clothing brands, most of them are like surf and skate brands, or even Nike for that matter, give way for athletes to have their own product lines. So they stay true to who Nike is by being Nike and iconic and keeping branding elements that are the same, but then they become Serena Williams. Then they become whoever, right? LeBron James. Through those product lines, and that's kind of what 144 is doing. And with just like a little more zhuzhing to make it more cohesive, like, you're on the precipice for sure.
I just want to help, you know, and I really do just want to help. And I feel like that's what 144's origin was like, I'll give up drifting for a second. I'll start supplying garments for people.
Yep.
And if it brings me back to drifting, great. But what I find myself in now is there's becoming a lot of motorsports opportunities, yet I'm still operating 144. And, you know, when we go drifting, the phone doesn't get answered, right? Or if we don't go drifting, the phone doesn't ring as much.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a yin and yang right now of like, how to build the proper team to scale. And so, yeah, guys, I'm learning a lot. I know I'm rambling here, but we're in a session with Kaylee, and, you know, I'm asking things that I would have asked 2-3 years ago, but I'm just asking them now because I'm also...
I actually think you asked me that 2 or 3 years ago, and I gave you a similar answer, but you weren't poised to be able to execute on things, where now you kind of have to like connect it all the way back to the sponsorship situation, your shit more straight to be able to execute on all of the things that will then elevate 144 to be what you want it to be.
That's really, really cool.
It all comes back to being patient and timing and literally everything else.
Yeah, and staying true to yourself and continuing,
Yep.
you know, just like letting it come around, because if you force it, then it's just awkward and it could come and go very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you want longevity in anything you do. So
That's really cool. I hope we're bringing some value. I feel like we are. Like, definitely feel good about the conversation. What else? Like, what else? You got any thoughts? Anything you want to bring to the table? Anything you want to pop quiz me on? Like, I'm just thinking out loud here. Or we could wrap the thing up too.
I
you
don't
know?
think I have any questions. No.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, guys, I just wanted to throw, like, obviously Kaylee is coming by the shop for a few things, and I wanted to throw her in front of the camera. She was a huge part of my career and the growth behind Accelera and Tire Streets. So I hope this brought some value.
Me too.
And if you guys see Kaylee around, tell her to get back to motorsports.
Maybe one day for sure.
Absolutely. Well, cool, Kaylee. You want to send them off with anything? Any last words on how to be cool like Kaylee?
Being cool is not worth it, first of all. That should not be anybody's goal.
That's right. What's cool is to not be cool.
What's cool is not to be cool. Exactly.
Let's end it off on that one.
Word.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching this cool down. See y'all on the next one.